picked up an old book, something written like decades ago, and suddenly it feels like it's describing today's news? It's a weird feeling, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's uncanny how certain pieces of literature just seem to hold up a mirror to whatever's happening right now. They give you this framework almost.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at George Orwell's 1984, the classic dystopian novel.
But not just the book itself. We're digging into these really striking, maybe even unsettling connections to the recent Iran-America conflict.
That's right. We're working from this relational review, this analysis, that calls 1984 a political mirror in this context.
Yeah, and our goal here really is to unpack how Orwell's big ideas, propaganda, surveillance, controlling the story, how those are actually playing out right now. It's kind of a shortcut, maybe, to understanding these big geopolitical forces.
Okay, so let's jump in. The source calls 1984 a political mirror reflecting real-world power struggles. When you think about that and the Iran-America situation, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, it's not just that 1984 is relevant. I mean, that's clear. It's that the mechanisms Orwell described, like Big Brother constantly changing who the enemy is, or the Ministry of Truth just rewriting history, they're not just warnings anymore.
Right.
It's almost like a playbook, a way states can use chaos and narrative warfare to keep control. That's the really chilling part the source highlights. Makes it essential reading, really.
Yeah, chilling new meaning. That phrase from the source really hits home. And I mean, one of the biggest things in 1984 is surveillance, right? The telescreens everywhere, the thought police.
That all-seeing eye, it feels
Yeah.
incredibly present now, doesn't it?
Totally. So how does that vision connect to what governments are doing today? The source points to both Iran and the U.S. using digital surveillance, internet controls, media manipulation.
Yeah, it's not fiction anymore, is it? During recent tensions, both sides have definitely used these tools to manage their populations.
And the source gets specific about Iran, things like shutting down internet access during protests, censoring news, pushing these strong nationalist stories. Feels very direct, very party-like.
It does have that heavy-handed feel.
Yeah.
And then the source describes the U.S. approach as subtler,
Subtler. Yeah.
using things like sophisticated cyber surveillance, carefully framing public narratives through media choices, using propaganda to build support for military actions.
Which brings us right back to Orwell's idea of reality control, or doublethink.
Exactly. That ability to hold two conflicting ideas and just accept both. It's not always about telling outright lies. Sometimes it's just blurring the lines.
Bending the facts.
Yeah, bending facts so that truth itself becomes flexible, serving the state's goals. It kind of forces people into this cognitive dissonance, which weirdly can make them more compliant.
It's disturbing to think about facts being bent to serve the state like that. It makes you second-guess everything. And speaking of bending things, let's talk about war. Perpetual war.
Ah, yes. Orwell's idea that the war is not meant to be won, it is meant to be continuous. Such a dark concept.
And when you look at the Iran-U.S. situation,
It feels, what the source says, eerily reflected. This decades-long hostility that just flares up again and again.
right, nuclear talks, then sanctions, then proxy conflicts, drone strikes. It just keeps cycling.
It never seems to fully resolve, does it? It just changes shape. The enemy remains, the tension remains.
And the source argues the point isn't really about winning, militarily speaking. It's more about the internal effect.
Exactly. This constant war rhetoric, as the source puts it, helps both governments keep control at home.
How so?
Well, it rallies people around the flag, builds nationalism, and it gives them a reason to suppress any dissent, An external enemy is a powerful tool for internal unity. Or forced unity, maybe.
So that constant state of near conflict becomes a way to manage the population. And that leads right into propaganda, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a universal strategy. The party in 1984 did it, and the source points out how both Iran and the U.S. use propaganda to shape how people see things.
And the key idea here, which is pretty scary, is that truth is secondary to loyalty.
That's the core of it. It doesn't matter what's factually true as much as whether you're on the right side.
Our source mentions how Iran often frames the U.S. as the great Satan, using religious and revolutionary language to keep people united domestically.
A very powerful, emotive narrative. And on the other side, the U.S. frames Iran as this rogue, terrorist-supporting regime.
Yeah, pushing that message through media, through political speeches.
And it's not just about swaying opinion on one issue. It's about building an entire worldview, isn't it? Like how different news outlets can cover the exact same event but make you feel totally differently about it just by emphasizing certain things.
That's pure Ministry of Truth stuff right there. Selective framing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about these big state-level games, we can't forget the people caught in the middle.
Right. Winston Smith. His struggle in 1984, it's hopeless, really, but it highlights the human cost.
And that cost is very real in the Iran-U.S. context. The source talks about the impact on ordinary citizens.
For Iranians, it mentions things like economic sanctions hitting hard, lack of access to medicines, political suppression. These aren't abstract issues.
No, they're daily realities. Imagine needing medicine for your child and not being able to get it because of sanctions, or being afraid to speak your mind. That's immediate personal suffering.
And it's not just one-sided either. The source points out consequences for Americans too. Things like the huge cost of military spending, the effects of misinformation, the social divisions that get deeper.
The impact is definitely felt, even if it looks different. The constant tension takes a toll.
So what's the bottom line here? The source seems to land on this idea that in both 1984 and this real-world conflict,
The individual gets sacrificed for the state. Personal freedom, personal truth, it all gets crushed under the weight of demanded collective loyalty.
it's Orwell's warning, loud and clear. Unchecked state power has a profound human cost.
Yeah, it forces people into a place where their own reality doesn't matter as much as the official one.
Which really brings us full circle. We've seen how 1984 isn't just some dusty old novel. The source calls it a warning that continues to echo.
Definitely. The Iran-America situation is just one example, maybe a very stark one, of how states use these tools, surveillance, endless conflict, narrative control, to shape reality.
And hopefully for you listening, understanding these mechanisms, these underlying patterns the source points out, is valuable.
Yeah, it helps you kind of peel back the layers when you're consuming news or information to see maybe how you're being told something, not just what you're being told.
It really does. Which leaves us with a final thought, something to chew on. If, as the source suggests, truth is secondary to loyalty in these powerful state narratives.
Then what does that mean for us as individuals trying to figure out what's actually real? How do we even navigate that?
And maybe more importantly, how do we cultivate the critical thinking we need to see through it all? Something to think